This is a brand new controller I got from Scuf yesterday. Listen to this. This is their first controller with the mouse click face button. This is going to be the FPS Plus Reflex, the Scump edition. But as soon as I turned it on, the Hall effect sticks that are anti-drift, TMR, whatever they put in there, and they're right here, they were basically broken out of the box.
Hey everyone, Tiago here. Today we're going to talk about the Scuf Reflex FPS Plus.
So this is the brand new FPS Plus, the Scuf Scump, you know, with the clicky face buttons. That's really cool. But look, what in the world is going on with these sticks? I think they messed that up. Look at that. I'm not even touching it. See, you can tell it's this controller. I'm clicking. I'm not touching the sticks. Look at that. What in the world?
Now, you may notice that this is a special limited edition, and I had a little problem with it. Literally just came out. This is going to be the Scump, if you know the Call of Duty player. The Scump version. This is the first time that Scuf has done a controller with the PlayStation 5 controller. Listen to that. These are face click buttons, the exact same switch as you have it on the triggers and on the bumpers. But I had a problem with this. It came literally broken. Now, Scuf recently started doing the Hall effect sticks on their PlayStation 5 controllers on the Reflex, and also, of course, on the Envision Pro, which is the PC controller. So this had Hall effects from the factory. I literally just bought this when it was announced. I think it was like $329 or something like that. You couldn't customize it. That's basically the option that they sent you. So I received the controller, and as soon as I plugged it in, the sticks were going in every single direction, both of them. Something was very, very wrong, and there was no way to calibrate it. If you connect it to that DualSense calibration tool, it won't let you calibrate it because Scuf uses a little calibration board. So normally what anybody should do is obviously return the controller and get a replacement or get it fixed. But you know, Scuf support, it's hard to talk to somebody like on the phone or anything like that. You have to send them a message and wait. And this controller, obviously they sold out, and they don't even have any Hall effects controllers for sale right now. So I figured if I contact support and send this back to get repaired, I mean, it's going to be like probably months of not having this controller. Obviously, I have a lot of controllers. I can use anything else. It's not a case of like just practicality. But I like this controller. That's where the kicker is. It's really cool. I like the face buttons.
And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video.
It's very similar to Battle Beaver. I even had a Battle Beaver PlayStation 5 controller. I was playing side by side with this one with their smart pad, and it feels extremely similar. Scuf did a good job. This controller feels technically very well done. But if we sort of like open that up to the joysticks, I guess technically then it isn't too well done. I just meant the physical feel, the mechanics of it. So I decided instead of sending it back to Scuf, and because this is like a limited edition controller also, what if they can't fix it or they don't have another one? And I haven't seen this for sale, you know, anywhere, even like on eBay. And I really wanted a Scuf with these buttons. You know, for me, that's important. So I thought, why not? I try and fix it. I have a lot of experience changing joysticks to TMR, Hall effects. You know, I've done probably hundreds, but for fun as an enthusiast, not a business. I just like to mod controllers, you know, I even have an Xbox One I just modded here. That's my hobby. So I'm pretty proficient at changing sticks. And obviously Scuf is going to be a little bit more complicated than a regular PlayStation 5 controller because they have their custom, you know, ribbon cables and their custom board. There's a lot going on there. And I didn't know exactly how it was going to look like on the inside, especially with their calibration board. So I decided instead of waiting and sending this out and potentially losing the controller and just getting the refund, and then, all right, that's fine, right? I know I can get my money back because the controller wasn't working, but I wanted to know what exactly was happening. And I would rather keep the controller, to be honest, because like if I send this back, who knows if I would ever get it back? Just because it's, they didn't make that much apparently, and I haven't seen it for sale. So I opened it up and I saw they're using a K Silver Hall effect sticks, and there is a calibration board there. There are absolutely no instructions on how to calibrate it or what you have to do if there's some software that can access it. Obviously, like, the Corsair IQ software works only on the Envision Pro. I plugged it in just to see. Who knows? Maybe that calibration board could talk to the software somehow. Maybe that's why Scuf would do calibration boards instead of just relying on that dual sense calibration website. Which I also understand why they wouldn't want to rely on that website, because it is an open source website. And who knows, what if Sony decides to shut it down or something? They wouldn't have anything to calibrate their controllers. So maybe they need something proprietary. That way they can control their process. They're not just a small, modding company. They're a pretty big operation. So I opened it up, and some weird stuff on the joysticks. They weren't like maybe completely level. Maybe there was missing solder in some spots. But then I said, they're open. I just happen to have some Halpai TMR sticks for the PlayStation 5. So I thought I'm just gonna take the joysticks out, put in the TMR. I mean, that should solve the problem.
So, of course, I have experience doing stuff, so I figured let me open it up, because to send this back to Scuf, they don't even have any in stock. Who knows how long it's going to take? So I took the whole thing apart. I've already taken the sticks out. They're using K Silver. Look, they have a calibration board that was attached to it. That's how they would calibrate. It wouldn't let me calibrate in software. But look, this is their soldering job, not mine. If you take a look here, look at that. It's even damaged, If you look there, that's their soldering job. Good thing I know what I'm doing with these, and I'm gonna put in TMR. This is Halpai, which is, the best on the market, along with Gully Kit. They're very similar. Maybe Gully Kit is like 0.001% better, but they're virtually the same. They're made in the same factory. So I'm gonna put these in. It's still going to be exactly like factory, and those are better than K Silver. I don't think the K Silver sticks are bad necessarily. I think they just did a really bad soldering job on the installation. This is the brand, absolutely brand new. Just got it yesterday. Obviously, my first reaction, if this wasn't like a limited edition Scuf, I would have just sent it back and be like, all right, just fix it. I'll buy another one. But they don't have this one on sale, and it's the only one with the clicky face. The first one that they've ever made. It's the FPS Plus. So basically, I just thought I know how to fix them myself. I have confidence that I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna finish cleaning these up with the mighty Hacko gun. That's when you know that you mean business. And it's going to be working perfectly. And yeah, I don't know why they use these calibration boards. Maybe because it's open source, or maybe they're afraid of Sony shutting down the online software where you can calibrate. But I'd rather be able to calibrate it myself and not have to rely on one of these boards. And the K Silver is not as good as the Halpai. If they were working, I would have left it in. Trust me, I didn't really want to open this up. But that's what I had to do.
So that's what I did. I removed the Hall effects. I even saved them with the calibration board. It came out pretty cleanly. I put in TMR, went to test the controller. Man, what would you know? Perfect. And now I can calibrate it on the proper DualSense website, whichever way that I want. And technically, the Halpai TMR is going to be, significantly better than the K Silver Hall effects. It's just a much better thumbstick. So even though, like, trust me, I wasn't happy that it didn't come working. I love working on controllers, but I don't really like working on Scuf controllers or Battle Beaver controllers. If I buy a controller that's already like heavily modded, I want to keep it factory. I want to keep it like it is. In music, like this is classical controllers. In classical music, you have what's called like fidelity to the score in a sense. Like if you're going to play Mozart, you're going to play it exactly like it's written or the best that you can interpret it. You're not going to add stuff, right? That's like jazz, which is fine. But in music, there's like fidelity to the text. And I'm kind of like that with controllers. I love modifying controllers, I love taking them apart. But if it's something somebody else did, like Scuff, I want to keep it original. And sometimes you don't really have a choice. And in this sense, I think the upgrade is pretty substantial because it fixed the problem. If the Hall effects were working, I'm more than fine with Hall effects. I even like traditional potentiometers. They have a pretty good response curve if you're playing Call of Duty and stuff like that. And most of them don't get drift, even though you think that every controller gets drift. It's not necessarily true. You'll get a little bit, but it's workable. So I would have been fine with the Hall effects. I have another Scuf newer Reflex FPS controller that has their Hall effects, and that one is working fine. I really do like the Scuf Reflex FPS. Maybe this was some type of just build quality issue. Maybe since they're so new, it was a little bit of an error. Who knows exactly what happened, but I mean, if I was a little bit upset and I know how to take these apart and fix them just like Scuff would, imagine a regular person who maybe only has a few controllers, or maybe that's their only controller that they were looking forward to. They would definitely be very upset because in that case, unless you know how to do the TMR sticks, that would have been a very difficult thing. You would have just had to return it or send it into Scuff support basically and get a different controller or wait for it to get repaired, which it looks like their Hall effects are not even for sale. So that could take months and months. So, it happens. There are different companies that mod controllers and controllers from knowing how they work. Sometimes little problems happen. Obviously, if they had tested this as soon as they built it, I don't know if it showed up like that. I'm assuming that it would because it's not just something that happened. But I've seen sticks go bad. Like it may look good after you calibrate it and you just test it really quick. I've done controllers where that's been the case, and then maybe after like 10 minutes of playing, one stick just goes wonky, and you have to basically replace it. Sometimes it's like a small tolerance, so who knows exactly what happens. I happen to think I know a lot of people complain about scuff build quality, and sure, this is another example of maybe a mistake. But I happen to think that the Reflex does have good build quality in general. Aside from stick drift, because that can happen, they're just using Sony potentiometers, and in this case with the Hall effects, something obviously went wrong either with their calibration board or with the installation. Who knows what happened? But aside from that, the controller is very well built. Like now we can talk a little bit about the actual controller. So I've been playing with it, with the TMR. Honestly, it's the best scuff that I have now, which is pretty funny. And technically, this is the best scuff in the world, right? Because it has face click buttons, which no other scuff has aside from the Envision Pro, but that's not a PlayStation 5 controller. And this has TMR, Hall Pie, which are basically, along with Gully Kit, basically almost the same thing, the best TMR currently available. So, and I'm just saying in an objective technical term, not that it matters, this is the best scuff in the world right now. No other scuff, PlayStation 5 especially, has these clicky buttons. It's for the face buttons and also the D-pad. And from somebody who owns a lot of Battle Beaver controllers that do the smart pad, and in my opinion, they do it, basically the best in the business, this is just as good. It's obviously some special 3D printed buttons that they're using, or whatever type of printing that they're using, but it feels good, and the controller itself feels really good. The rumbles are removed, making it a little bit lighter. With the TMR feels great. Obviously, I wasn't able to use it with their Hall effects with this controller, but I do have another Reflex FPS with the Scuf Hall effects with that calibration board. That one works fine. And that one's been good to use as well. I haven't had any issues. I like the Hall effects for what they are in that one. Obviously, TMR is better, but in a lot of cases it's hard to notice the difference. Sometimes you'll get some sensitivity changes, but this Hall Pie feels very, very nice. Um, the controller itself is just your traditional PlayStation 5 Scuf Reflex, aside from the face button. And aside, it has obviously the clicky mouse click digital tap triggers and bumpers. Scuf does a great job at those triggers and bumpers. They have a good actuation distance. And some controllers, it's too tight. This one it just feels great. Like I said earlier, mechanically, it feels amazing. And technically, in terms of the way the controller's put together, the big problem really was with that malfunctioning Hall effect stick. Now, a controller this expensive, you would imagine from the factory, Scuf would put TMR in them, right? Um, and I don't know. I'd like to see the reason why they use a calibration board. Somebody else had said it's for the dead zone because sometimes Hall effects may have a little dead zone area where maybe you get a little jitter. And maybe that's why they're doing a calibration board, so that way users don't complain and think it's stick drift. That could potentially be the reason also, not just the open source software, because I'm sure that software, they can probably replicate it and whatever, if it's open source, so that's not a big deal. It would just come down to Sony and licensing issues and things like that. So I'm sure they could figure that out if they wanted to. It might be the dead zone thing because, if you've ever seen a Hall effect stick, it doesn't stay at the center perfectly sometimes just because of the nature of it. It's not drifting technically, but it does a little jitter. Like if you ever look at the gamepad tester, it'll do a little bit of jitter. And Scuf could assume that the normal person seeing that may think it's defective or may think it's drift, right? Even if it's just a little bit. So maybe that's what the dead zone was, a calibration board or something like that. Maybe that was the focus. I don't know. It'd be nice to hear from them to see what it is. But anyway, that's where we are with this now. So now, I mean, all I really had to lose was the TMR stick, the Hall Pi, that I had to install it in here. But that's better in my opinion than having to send the controller back. And then trust me, it was fun fixing it. Like, not that I necessarily wanted to. I have other things I rather do, other controllers I rather mod. But it was satisfying knowing that I could fix a scuff better than the original and I didn't have to send it back. It took me under an hour. It was just maybe 45 minutes or something like that between opening it up and actually switching out the sticks and then turning it on. I calibrated it. Everything was good. Then I played, I've been playing with it. I played really well with it actually in Call of Duty, which was, made me happy with the controller. Because now I feel like it's kind of like it's a scuff, but it's also a little bit of like mine, because I put my sticks in there and I had to do things to it. So that's an interesting little juxtaposition there. But still, you shouldn't have to do that on a controller that's over $300. So hopefully it doesn't happen to too many more people, but Scuf doesn't have any for sale right now. Even the regular one. I'm not even talking about the face click. Even the regular FPS with Hall effects. You can sign up to be notified as of now. We're in the middle of July, so I haven't seen that update. So they said they're getting more ready, and I don't know if they're ever going to sell this again with the face click. I mean, that's worked perfectly, no issues with that. I hope so. I hope that the regular Reflex has the face click because it's really incredible, very snappy, super responsive. It doesn't feel like stiff or anything like that, like sometimes these may do with like a tack switch. These are like actual switches like they use on the trigger and on the bumper. It sounds and feels like that. So to that, definitely an A plus. But very interesting with this issue. Let me know what you guys think down below. I know Scuf has a reputation in the past for quality control issues, but I don't know. Still a pretty cool controller, but let me know what you think, and remember to subscribe.